A woman other than your mother or other family members. Edit. I specified other than women in your family, but answers including women in the family have been good, so feel free to leave such responses if you wish. Story 1. If you end our relationship, I will become involved with your closest friend. He is certainly interested in me. She made an effort. He accepted the date but did not show up. Some friends are lifelong. Story 2. When we have children, I hope they look nothing like you, she said in complete seriousness, as if it was something I should be okay with. How did it make me feel? Devastated, crushed, just like all of the other abusive things she said when she was being nice. Story 3. I don't love you anymore is all it took for me. It sent me into spiraling depression and drug use for years. In all fairness, it was my first serious relationship, and I thought we were going to be married, have children, and live happily ever after. Then she ended the relationship unexpectedly, so it had a lot of impact at the time. Story 4. As a teenager who experienced late puberty, the girls were not very interested in me. Women in my family would often ask, "What's wrong with you? Why don't you have a girlfriend?" Some even asked if I was gay and said it was okay to come out. This made me feel like a freak. I liked girls, they just did not like me at the time. Story 5. When I was in school, I was told to sit between two girls who were disrupting the class because of their constant chatter. When I approached the chair, one of them got up and said, I don't want to sit next to him. He looks like he has a disease." That was 20 years ago, and I still think about it to this day. Story 6. I chatted with a cute girl at a bar years ago. I thought we had good conversation and chemistry, so I asked if I could get her number. She declined, apologized, said I was cute but that she did not see Asian men as men. I think she was actually trying to let me down gently but ended up failing miserably. Story 7. Me nervously asking out my crush in high school. Her, and she walked away. I carried that confidence destroyer until I was 30. Story 8. A woman I went on a date with a couple of years ago, when asked why she did not want a second date, said, "You are second husband material. You have your life together. Women need to get their hearts broken by a bad boy before they are ready for you." Story 9. My ex-wife called me a narcissist. That really affected my mind. I took therapy and developed healthier relationships to overcome that. Story 10. I wasted the best years of my life with you. Ex-girlfriend. Realization is what I felt. She was never good enough for me. Story 11. At first we thought you were creepy, but after we got to know you a little better, we realized you were cool and just kind of in your own world, not hurting anybody. Is that what people think of me at first? Story 12. I was at a party, invited by my wife's friend. We showed up, and I usually say hi to everyone, then go up to a group of people and say hi. One girl immediately said, "I don't like black guys." There was silence from the whole group. I jokingly said, "I don't date black guys either," to make it less awkward. The group then told her that I am married, and she got flustered and walked off. She proceeded to watch me for the rest of the party, so my wife and I left early. Story 13. When my girlfriend and I started dating, we were having lunch with one of her friends. My girlfriend is white, and I am Asian. I was the second Asian man she had dated. While having lunch and discussing this, her friend said, "I don't date Asian men," and held up her pinky. This really happened. This friend had never dated an Asian man before and has not since. Story 14. My ex-wife cheated on me with multiple men throughout our 10-year marriage. After my divorce, I was having drinks with a female friend I intended to ask out. She had been a friend before I met my wife and, at times, a friend of my wife. I had talked with her about my ex's cheating on multiple occasions. As we were talking, the topic of her latest boyfriend cheating on her came up, and she said, "I should have done what my ex did and married someone no one else wanted." That's how she knew you'd never cheat on her. It's been 5 years, and I haven't been able to consider asking anyone out. Story 15. It was a bad breakup in process, and I ran into one of her best friends getting coffee. We had a brief conversation, and I asked how my ex was doing. She is trying to figure out what her life looks like now that things like having children, getting married, and growing old together are apparently not going to happen. Story 16. That I was a worse person than her ex when I broke up with her. Her ex did certain things against her consent, beat her regularly, emotionally manipulated her, and was generally a harmful person. I was emotionally unavailable and unable to support her when she needed me. At that moment, she said that it hurt her more than anything else I did or said during our relationship. I had my own undiagnosed childhood traumas. 8 years later, I learned she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which explained a lot of her actions during our 1.5-year relationship. I forgave her mentally before that point, but it affected me for a long time and still does occasionally. Story 17. She told me, "You are everything I am looking for." That said, I have a clear image of how the man I want to date looks, and you are not even close. I am grateful she was honest. We clicked on everything, so I understood that we were not meant to be. It saved time and resources for both of us. Story 18. I was 18 and in the best shape I had ever been so far. I was 5 feet 11 inches, 180 pounds, worked out every day, sometimes twice a day, for football. I really liked this girl I was dating at the time. We got along. She was cute, and I felt butterflies in my stomach when we were together. One day, she texted me while we were both at school. She went to the other high school in my county and said we needed to talk when I got home. I was nervous the rest of the day and called her as soon as I drove home. She told me that she had always thought I was physically repulsive but hoped she would get over it. She said she liked my personality but would never like me physically. She said I was disgusting and that she wanted to physically date someone else while emotionally and mentally dating me. I told her to leave me alone and broke up with her, blocking her number, blocking her on social media, and forwarding emails to spam. I cried for hours. This was my second relationship. The previous one had been short but sweet, and we broke up because we were not very compatible, so I recovered easily. This one destroyed me. I went to a very dark place, and even at 32, I can still hear her voice inside my head when I look in the mirror. I remember thinking, if I'm so ugly that I repulse people now, why bother? Why try? I basically gave up on my appearance. It wasn't until I met my now wife roughly 4 years later that I even thought about dating again. We met online where she could not see me. I still hear her voice whenever I look in the mirror. Every time I hit a new weight loss milestone or a new personal record lifting weights, I hear her voice telling me I am repulsive. I am in therapy trying to work through many mental issues, and this is one of them, but I thought I would be over this at 32. Story 19. It was the peak of COVID-19 in 2021, and I lived 10 hours away from my family, so I was feeling pretty depressed that I would not be seeing them on Christmas. My girlfriend at the time, who got to see her family regularly living only 5 minutes away, said after I told her how I was feeling, "It doesn't really matter how you feel." I checked out of that relationship at that point, and we broke up not long after. I haven't been on a date since. Story 20. These are not even the worst ones. There are guys you date and guys you marry. You are a guy we marry. I do not really care about how you feel. I am just not into guys like you at all. What in the world made you think I would want to date you? You. Gross. You are asking me out? I thought you were gay. Story 21. When I asked my ex if my stepson missed me while we were separated before a full breakup, she said, "I can't give that to you." That crushed me. Story 22. This is not as bad as others I have seen here, but when I was in high school, a girl I was crushing on asked me if I wanted to go out with her. I obviously said yes, and she said, "Oh, you thought I was serious?" and started laughing with her 2 friends. Story 23. Probably my mom calling me a rude name when I was 12. She was building a fence, I was helping, had no idea what she was asking me to do, and she wasn't explaining it in a way that I understood. You know how some people tell you about something that only leads to more questions instead of giving you information? It was something like that. Story 24. I had a crush on a girl because of who she was. One day, we were hanging out with friends at her house, and she looked at me and said, "I will never see you as a real man." She probably found out that I liked her and wanted to make her point clear. That devastated me, but I kept my cool. Even to this day, it haunts me. Story 25. I was trying to open up to a female friend about the problems I was having at the time, and she said, "Yeah, whatever," then promptly returned to talking about herself. Our friendship did not last very long after that. Story 26. We were buzzed, and I was joking around, being a smartass back to her because she was being a smartass to me. Out of nowhere, she said, "You don't have a black dick to be talking to me like that." We hadn't even hooked up yet. That completely turned me off toward her. Her excuse was the alcohol, of course. Story 27. I am half black and half Mexican. When I was in high school, a girl told me they do not mix, essentially calling me ugly. Story 28. She told me she was unfaithful. She sounded sad, but the tone she used when she said it, and when she tried to make excuses, felt worse than any insult could. Story 29. I would rather die alone of cancer than spend time with your children. Maybe if your children died in a car accident, I would marry you. Story 30. Before COVID-19, I lost my father to cancer. 12 months later, I lost my grandmother. After that, my last living grandmother declined and was very ill by October 2020. That was when my ex told me, "You are so exhausting to listen to." To this day, even around my current girlfriend, those words cut me deeply, and I think twice before I vent or ask her for support. Story 31. You're only a party in Miami, and you'll never achieve greatness. My biological mother. I now make close to $100,000, am a combat veteran, own my own house, and am facing the final steps needed for a promotion to start a management role. As for her, the last anyone has heard, she is still doing drugs and living on the streets. Story 32. I have had women tell me that no woman would ever want to be with an unattractive person like me. Turns out they were right, as I am a 30-year-old who has never been on a date. Meanwhile, everyone around me has no issues finding a significant other. How do I feel? Sad and heartbroken. Feelings that are now slowly starting to turn into bitterness and resentment. Story 33. You must enjoy wallowing in self-pity. This comes from a woman who is an emotional disaster and believes she is victimized by the whole world. Also, from the same woman, I do not know you well. This was said after she claimed I was her closest friend and that I was one of only 2 people she could trust. She told me very personal things, and I shared personal things I do not say to anybody. Story 34. Look at him. He, a friend of hers, is an accomplished man. During my phase of depression, thank you for kicking me when I was down. Story 35. My ex told me, "You are just a simple happy boy with no other emotions." And she meant it as a compliment. I had been struggling and dealing with a lot and was certainly not trying to hide it. It hurt to think that my partner of 5 years could not see me any deeper. It hurt to think that for 5 years I could have been expressing my emotions better. Now I sit here after being dumped for unrelated reasons, and I wish I could still be a simple happy boy. I do not think I ever will be again, but those words will forever stay with me. Story 36. My ex just destroyed my self-esteem by criticizing my body. Man boobs, fat, ugly, not attractive, and so on. She said these things. I was out of the house at least 11 hours a day working. Story 37. My ex from about 8 years ago said to me while she was breaking up with me, after she had cheated on me, that I shouldn't be so sad because this was a really important part of her journey to becoming herself. Like that was supposed to be comforting to me. She could only view the relationship as something that benefited her, and I was just an incidental part of it. I don't know. Obviously, it was not the worst thing in the world, but it really messed with my head. Story 38. No one has said worse things to me than my former spouse of 22 years. I have no desire to repeat any of it. Story 39. A former friend, we'll call her C, told me to, come on, concentrate, and thrust a fist in the air. I was sitting stunned as my life partner lay dead in a hospice bed after their battle with cancer 1 hour before. Apparently, I should have been tidying up, not numb with shock. She was also a friend of my partner's. C had sat up with my partner for 2 weeks. Other friends did too, and I thought the world of her until that moment. Where did she think my attention was going to be? She later said I cried too much at the funeral, as it's not the custom to show emotions in the country we stayed in. Her ex-husband, not a very nice person himself, told me C wanted to break contact with me. I decided to end the friendship shortly after that by distancing myself. I bumped into another friend and said the ex said you all want me to leave. I left the country without a goodbye shortly after that, almost 8 months later. C tried to say through others it was okay to contact her. Not a chance. She then badmouthed me to others, saying I used my partner and was a horrible person. It took 6 years not to feel burning rage at her. Story 40. In escalating order of cruelty. 1998. EW no. And proceeds with bicker laughter with her best friend. I think all guys can relate. 2000. You are no man. Out of the blue, I do not know to this day what brought it on. Teenage hormones, I guess. 2019. You sure will find someone someday. A complete stranger from her group of friends. I was so stunned by her mocking tone and the following giggles that I could not say anything. After all those years, I am only good for a punchline. I said nothing and walked away. May her insides rot and may she have no mercy from the gods. Story 41. I do not know about brutal, but I dislike when a woman says you need to man up or, well, that is not what a real man would do. Please be quiet, Kelly. We all know you do not have a father in your life. Story 42. One thing I do know is that the old saying, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, is quite accurate. Don't anger a woman. They have knives built into their tongues. I had a girl who blamed me for her brother's suicide, as if her brother wasn't literally my best friend. It felt like I was shot point blank through the chest when she said it was my fault. Felt like my heart stopped beating for a few minutes. I loved that kid. How anyone could be so heartless as to blame someone for a suicide that had nothing to do with them, I don't know. It stung for a long time. It took me years to finally come to terms with the fact that it was not my fault. I even tried to get him to talk to me, but he wouldn't. He was too depressed, begged me for space, knew he wasn't feeling well, but never even hinted that he was suicidal. So I gave him space. I do, however, regret not being more adamant about finding out what was wrong, but I don't feel responsible for his choice. Years later, I found out it was because a girl he liked wanted me instead, and I had no interest in her. What a sad reason to go, jealous over nothing. I might have understood if the girl and I had gotten together, but we didn't. In fact, I kind of hated this girl. It wouldn't surprise me if she was the one who told him to do it. She was pretty cruel, which is why I didn't like her. Another ex-girlfriend told me I looked exactly like her nightmare demon. Sure, it hurt, but it wasn't as bad as being blamed for somebody else dying unexpectedly. I must have been one handsome devil. I mean, she still was my girlfriend despite me looking like a demon to her. That didn't make any sense to me. If I was really that scary, why even try? A friend of mine finally mustered the courage to ask a girl out, and she burst out crying and made a huge scene, saying, "Did you really think I was so ugly that you had a chance?" That was harsh. Another girl told me she liked me and asked if she could sleep over. I said sure, but wanted to keep things friendly. I wasn't ready for anything beyond friendship after my ex died. She died in a car accident, and I wasn't ready to open my heart yet. Nothing abnormal happened between us. We watched TV, smoked a bit of weed, chatted about exes, and went to sleep. I even slept on my couch while she slept on my king-sized futon. In the middle of the night, she asked if I could cuddle her because she couldn't sleep. I said, okay, but only for a few minutes. We ended up dozing off together. By the time I woke up, she was gone. I was so confused. I had fallen asleep fully dressed, still wearing my jeans and belt. The next day at work, she apparently told my boss I raped her. Couldn't believe it. Beyond spooning her, I didn't think I did anything to frighten her. I began to doubt myself. It was so out of left field that I was shocked and speechless when my boss came to fire me and I asked why. He said a girl complained that one of his workers tried to assault her, me, which never happened at all. But it's my word, A huge, scary-looking guy versus a cute little blonde girl. Guess who was believed? The girl. I was so convinced I must have done something in my sleep, but after being tested, I had no reason for sleepwalking or anything similar. I legitimately thought I might have done something by accident in my sleep, but there was no evidence to suggest that. It's certainly not in my character to do such a thing. I've always been proud of being a gentleman. Respecting boundaries and consent has always been my priority. Always. You can thank my father for teaching me to be such a good lover. He is a true gentleman. This situation had me reeling, doubting myself, questioning if I could have done something horrible to this poor girl. I had to call her and ask what happened. To my shock, she said, "I made it all up. I just wanted to see you get fired so I could get the job there again." I was stunned. "Why would you do something like that?" I asked. She replied, "I don't know. It just felt like it would be funny." I wish I had recorded her saying that. Felt like my soul was about to leave my body. I was actually starting to believe I was schizophrenic or something, and it turns out she just wanted to sabotage me for fun. People legitimately thought I was some kind of sex offender when that's the farthest thing from the truth. Seriously, ask my wife. Couldn't even reply. The best I could muster was, "Oh, okay." Then I hung up. We never spoke again. Story 43, my ex. She told me she was a different woman a couple of weeks before she broke up with me. She cheated on me twice, and I remember she called me a coward because our call dropped. My service was cut, and I was calling on Wi-Fi. Not to mention, she wanted to hide the fact that she had sex with another man the day of her trip. We took a break, which was the biggest mistake I've made. I'm the one who got blamed for telling my friends. She didn't say it, but it was definitely implied that she didn't love me anymore. She couldn't actually say it, but she showed it. She was cheating on me for a while until she did that, and she is now married to that guy. Honestly, yes, I'm still hurt by it. She lived with me for a few years without paying bills. I still think about the fun we had sometimes when it gets late at night and my thoughts start working overtime. Story 44. My current girlfriend told me last year that she did not like how I asked her to be my girlfriend, but she liked how her ex did it more because of how romantic it was. Story 45. She told me she knew I would go along with the sexual activities she made me do because she could tell I was a disgusting little creep just by looking at me. Story 46. I was dating a girl far out of my league. We really clicked when we were messaging, but in person, I was awkward because she intimidated me. It would have faded, and we had some good times, but eventually, she thought I didn't find her pretty and had enough. Over text, she said, "I hate you. Why do you make me feel so ugly? I love my ex-husband more than I'll ever like you, and he used to beat me into hospitals. I was blocked on everything." Story 47. I had a serious crush on a girl in my early 20s. I opened my heart to her. She never said yes, but she never stepped away either. She always spoke highly of me, praised me in front of other friends, and openly supported me everywhere. In the end, she flatly rejected me. She said I was too good for her and did not deserve her. I was totally heartbroken and still cannot interpret this after many years. Story 48. When I was younger, I was talking to my mother about life. I said something about my future family, and she said, "Well, you have to find someone first," with a look in her eyes that communicated, "And we know that will not happen." Story 49. A few days after my sister's suicide, my then-wife and I got into an argument over something trivial. She told me I should end my life like my sister. Story 50. I was called a gaslighting narcissist, which sent me straight into therapy, as she was adamant that she was the only person who could see the real me. I tried to fix the relationship and encouraged her to go to couples therapy, but she said I needed to work on myself before we could work on us. In the end, I was cheated on again. Later, during a drunken moment, I was told that I was not a real man, that I had no drive or ambition, and that I had no appeal or worth. She spat in my face and laid hands on me then, too. I am in the top 10% for earnings in my area. I went from a new employee to running an entire department in less than 4 years. I am 5 feet 11 inches tall and weigh 163 pounds, with nice lean muscle. I have been told I am a catch and that I will be fine, but I am struggling. Story 51. When my daughter arrived home after being born in the hospital, my daughter's mother said, "Thank you for your genetics, your finances, and now you are on your own." My auntie was there and heard it all. Story 52. You are so positive and make everything seem like it will always work out. It feels unfair because I have to carry so much weight on my shoulders, and you always say and act like everything will be fine. Seems unfair. Story 53. You're everything I want in a relationship, but I just don't want to date you. She told me this on our 5th date. It made me feel like even when I finally find someone who likes me and I match well with, I still won't be good enough. Story 54. When we were grabbing some coffee on our 2nd date, my bank was malfunctioning and gave me errors when I tried to pay for my coffee. We split the bill. She offered to pay to avoid discomfort. I thanked her, apologized for the inconvenience. I felt quite ashamed at the moment, and we agreed that I would send her the money as soon as the bank fixed the problem. After the date, I tried to send her the $2, but the bank kept refusing. I explained this to her, apologized again via text, and planned to call customer support. Suddenly, she started acting mockingly and said, "Do you always take girls to places you cannot afford?" I felt angry and ashamed and tried to explain again, but she kept going. I simply blocked her. I sent her the $2 2 days later, as soon as my bank fixed the issue. I remained angry for a couple of days after that. Story 55. I wish you had died overseas with your friends. She was pregnant with our daughter and very hormonal. I've forgiven her but don't think I can ever forget it. I agree with her, but using that against me like that just hurt. Not because of what she actually said, but the betrayal of using my biggest losses and hurts against me. Just bringing them up at all was painful. I would have much rather she said she wished I had died instead of bringing them up. Story 56. I was a teenager. A girl who thought she was very attractive was walking by my desk. She turned around, looked me in the eye and said, "You wish." I did not wish. But after she said that, I did wish. It has bothered me ever since. Story 57. I'm happy that my current girlfriend doesn't criticize my appearance like it's a mistake that needs fixing. Unlike some of the other women I've dated. You'd be good looking if you just did this with your hair. If you wore the clothes I keep insisting you wear, you'd be so attractive. I'm not a child. I know how to dress myself, and I'm not looking for another mother. I don't understand why some women assume they are the relationships expert on fashion, randomly offering advice that usually feels like insults. Story 58. In college, I overheard a woman I was friends with say I was never going to get married because I had never dated before. She knew it was something I was insecure about, and hearing that she thought I was hopeless was a punch in the gut. Story 59. I hope you get cancer. In fact, I hope it is metastatic and you have no hope for treatment. This was said by my ex when I broke up with her. This was followed by her drinking most of a bottle of Jack Daniels and punching me in the face. Months later, she is continually trying to get back with me. Story 60. The worst thing that ever happened to me was when a drunk girl at a party said, "Shame you're short." After reading some of the answers here, I think I got off easy. Story 61. The day I was going to ask her to marry me, she told me my father was such an awful man she could not marry me because all sons turn into their fathers. My father and I never got along, like oil and water. My partner of 38 years is adamant I am nothing like my father. I am good with that. Story 62. She told me she liked cowboys. I shared my love for country music, but it was not cowboy enough. I mentioned how I was raised with farm animals as a child, but still not cowboy enough. I shared photos of myself in boots, denim, and a Stetson hat. Again, not cowboy enough. I shared photos of me literally working as a farmhand. Still not cowboy enough. I grew frustrated and asked what she meant by cowboy. Did she mean the Mexican cowboy variety across the border? Apparently not. A couple of days later, she shared photos and videos of white American cowboys. When she said she liked cowboys, she meant white Americans. Not short, brown, Indian, vaquero style, Mexican music type of cowboys. It made me realize that white Americans will never consider me one of their own. No matter how American my accent is, no matter how well-spoken I am, no matter how Christian I am, no matter how educated I am, no matter how assimilated I become, white Americans will never associate me as one of their own. Story 63 made me feel worthless every time. I hoped I would get past that at some point, but instead, I stopped asking. You can't miss shots you don't take. Survival without closeness is dull but very possible. Story 64. It's not you, it's me. My wife said this about 1 week after our first wedding anniversary. She has some personal issues to work on and doesn't want me to waste time waiting. It has been a month since then. Story 65. 8th grade. A girl in front of me in class suddenly turned to me and said, "You have the ugliest eyes." Still makes me wonder why. I am happy she turned out to be unsuccessful in life. Story 66. After she invited me to go out while watching a band play and having fun, she said, "I'm going to go get us another drink. Wait here. I'll be right back." She left with another man. Story 67. Stop crying and man up. You're embarrassing yourself in front of your son. This was said by my ex when I went to her and explained I was struggling mentally and emotionally and wanted to try to figure out how to improve our situation, fearing we were not going to make it. It turned out the entire problem was her. She was critically bad for me, and I needed to leave the relationship to find peace and happiness again, which I did. I now have an amazing life with my son and family. Sadly, she is still exactly the same. I feel sorry for her new significant other, as I still see and hear the same personality faults in her all these years later. Story 68. When I was 18 and got my first job, I met a girl at Carnival in my city. She broke up with me, saying that I did not make enough money and saw no future with me. Story 69. I have a few things I could share, but the most brutal one was from a completely random woman. I was placed next to this girl in my freshman English class after our professor did one of those icebreaker games where you moved around the room and ended up next to random people. I tried being polite and spoke to her a few times. A couple of classes later, I asked her something mundane like, "How was your weekend?" And she launched into a tirade insinuating I was hitting on her, saying she didn't stand a chance and to leave her alone. After the shock wore off, I told her she didn't have to worry about me saying anything to her again and moved across the classroom. Everyone nearby was like, "What was that about?" And I just shook my head. Luckily, everyone near me knew I didn't do anything wrong, but I was still pretty angry and almost lost my temper. I eventually calmed down and just avoided her after that. Story 70. A family friend approaches my sister and me at church. To my sister, "Oh, you look so beautiful today. Oh, look at your hair. Your dress is so pretty. I love how nice you look." To me, "Hello? Name. How are you?" As if I was not there the whole time. She always compared how I did not look as nice as my sister. Story 71. I hope every day that you live on this earth is as miserable as every other day you have ever experienced. This hurts not because of the words, but because if you know how much these words would hurt me, that means I trusted you with a personal part of myself that I believed you would never cross. I have been depressed since I was 11 or 12 years old. Telling me to kill myself makes me laugh uproariously. To truly hurt me, you would have to understand that the person who has hurt me the most, and whom I despise above all else, is myself. And to use that against me, cannot even conceive why. Why? Story 72. I remember asking a girl out once in secondary school, and her response was to loudly say, "Erg." Not only did she do that, but she also went around the whole playground expressing her disgust at me even considering asking her out. Her group made sure everyone knew what happened. Worst she can say is no. I was mocked about this for weeks. With the various life experiences I now have, I am convinced that men are better at empathy and sympathy than women, and that the idea that women are better at these things is mere propaganda. Women are led by their feelings, which are usually very self-centered. Story 73. I came across my ex-girlfriend, who I was still deeply in love with, crying at the local library. I asked if I could help, took her to lunch and got her laughing and feeling good. Then she told me her new boyfriend was just like me. I was hung up on that for years. If he was just like me, why did you leave me? Story 74. I had known her for a few years and we would hang out. She had gone through a few breakups, and after one she said, "Why do I have such horrible luck with men?" I replied, "Well, why not date me?" Her response was, "No, I only date guys 6 feet and taller." She was 5'2" and not attractive enough to be picky. Story 75. I asked a girl out, and she told me she couldn't date anyone right now or her head would explode. She was speaking metaphorically, but for a few seconds, I thought a witch had put a curse on her or something. A couple of weeks later, she was, of course, dating the town troublemaker. Another girl I was seeing was hesitant to accept being in a relationship with me. She said, "Why do you keep clinging to me? You're like that goldfish poo that won't let go." She was Japanese, so I have often wondered if that is a saying in their culture, but I think she was just rude. I've had other women say far worse things to me, but it was water off a duck's back in those cases. It's only when I've been trying to make a relationship work and was emotionally invested that they've gotten under my skin. Story 76. Probably every encouraging thing and offer of matchmaking I have received from my women friends who are either married or in committed relationships that I deeply respect makes me feel like I am either insane or being lied to when I compare what I hear from them to what I experience in the dating market. Story 77. You cannot make me do something I do not want to or know how to. My ex, when I asked for closure immediately after she ended our relationship via text message, after I flew 5,000 miles to see her. Story 78. "I want to see what you look like on fire," she said, then took the can of kerosene from beside the nightstand. Not what you want to hear when you are handcuffed to the bed. Story 79. When stopped for speeding by a female police officer, I was kind of flirting with her, hoping to get out of a ticket. She said to me, "I don't think you are funny or cute. Just cool it." I got a ticket. Story 80. Woke up one morning about 18 years ago with my then on and off girlfriend just lying in bed wide-eyed staring at the ceiling. She said she had to tell me something and was pretty shook up. I knew it wouldn't be good. At that point, two of my friends and I rented a house together, one of whom often hosted after parties and always had people over. The previous night, my girlfriend and I had a heated argument. I stayed calm, hugged her, and asked what was wrong. I suspected where this was heading. She began, "Last night was X, Y, and Z," all regarding negative feelings and thoughts. She said she was very aggravated and confused. So she chose to blow off some steam and hang out after we fought and I fell asleep. At that moment, I thought she was about to say she had been with someone else, or that something bad had happened to her. I was getting angry and ready to confront someone. I said, "Please don't tell me it was one of the roommates." But she said it wasn't. It happened in the garage with someone who was over. I am a reasonable person and do believe I essentially set the stage for this by bringing a very pretty girl into my frat house-like living situation full of guys, alcohol, and drugs. I had said some hurtful things to her and then fell asleep before we could resolve the issue. I coped with it relatively quickly because I knew she didn't feel good about it. She was playful and hypersexual by nature, which was normally great except in this situation. I immediately forgave her, saying, "Well, we're clearly not exclusive, and we have some things to fix in the future, but I don't hate you, and I apologize for being a jerk." I then asked if she used protection or if we needed to get emergency contraception or schedule a test. At that point, there was no tension. We were giggling and joking. We had known each other a long time and had a relationship like Ross and Rachel from the TV show Friends, on and off with a checkered history. We weren't each other's only partners, but every few months we would reconnect and things would pick up again. While it hurt a bit and I felt slightly betrayed, I wasn't furious. As we got into the car, I asked, "Was it good at least?" She said, "Honestly, no." "And you know what?" I said, "What?" She replied, "You know all that talk about black guys being better?" I said, "Sure." I was picturing her with some big black man. She said, "Yeah, I wasn't impressed. I was surprised at how average they were after all the talk." I laughed and said, "They?" She said, "I hooked up with one, but there was another guy hooking up with some girl too. I was unimpressed, but the girl was fine. I can guarantee you if you were awake, we both would have had a better time with you." She complimented me, saying I was still unbeaten in her eyes. I chuckled and said, "Coming from a raging prostitute with as much experience as you, that's quite a compliment." "Thanks." We laughed and played music the rest of the ride. On the way home, I stopped to sign a lease and put down a deposit for an apartment. I no longer wanted to be around that party environment. When I got home, I talked to my roommate who said, "Yeah, I heard. I wasn't around. For what it's worth." I said, "I know it's all good, but I can't stay here anymore. I'm sure you understand. Here's a month's rent. I'll be out in a few hours. You should start looking for a new roommate." And that was that. In summary, I woke up one morning to my girlfriend admitting she slept with some random guy in a borderline group sex situation in my garage while I was asleep. It stung, but then she told me I was still the best she had, which helped ease the pain. Also, once, midway through a 12-mile hike near a waterfall with a different girl, I proposed. It wasn't necessarily what I said, but the face she made as I began. It felt like a ton of bricks sank in my stomach, and I was embarrassed by how wrong I was. I expected an enthusiastic yes, but I immediately saw in her face that the answer would be no, so I backed off. The last 5 miles of the hike were awkwardly quiet as we both tried to keep it together. We were with a few other couples who thankfully didn't witness the failed proposal. Then began a 36-hour talk and crying session once we got in the car. She asked if she could see the ring. I said no and went to return it while she waited in the car. I came back with a new Omega watch. That hurt much more than being cheated on. I probably should have just stuck with that story. Story 81. My best friend's sister said to me right after she complained about being called fat earlier in the day, "Better not pass this male pattern baldness to your kids." She said this randomly. I didn't get mad because I realized she was hurting from being called fat and was trying to hurt me. It was interesting to observe. Just before she made the comment about my baldness, she asked me if she was fat. I said I wasn't the best person to answer that question. Maybe my response irritated her. Story 82. My ex-fiancé said my singing was like a yowling cat. It has been probably a decade, and I still struggle to let myself sing loud enough to be heard even from the next room if there is a chance I can be heard. Yes, I know I am tone deaf, but fun things are fun. Story 83. You are too kind. She then began dating someone who got her pregnant before she was a junior in high school. Story 84. Our wrists are the same size. 10 years later, I am 15 kilograms heavier and still have abs. Maybe it is what I needed to hear. Story 85. I know you were not loved in your childhood and that is why you behave this way. Story 86. I don't feel loved by you. After loving her truly, her admitting it several times over the years, after she cheated more than 6 times, putting my life on hold, only for her to destroy it with her unhealed issues and infidelity. But she felt comfortable enough to have relations with her cousin and another forgettable average boy who knew she was divorced and had been assaulted, and still wanted to use her, while promising me marriage. Story 87. We can't be together. You are too good for me. I do not care what she said. It is still crushing to be told I am not good enough. Story 88. Maybe this does not fit with the question, but this had far more effect on my life than anything else. My mother telling me, for as long as I can remember, that under no circumstances am I ever to raise my hand to a woman. First, I agree with this, but it was ingrained in me in such a no room for compromise way that I put up with physical abuse from multiple partners. I thought that this is just what a man is supposed to do, endure it. After all, you are being hit by a woman, not another man. It is not like she is capable of real damage. The emotional damage is real. What I eventually learned for myself is that it is not okay, and I will absolutely not suffer that behavior from any partner again. I still will not hit back, but I will certainly walk away with no hesitation now. Story 89. In the aftermath of catching my wife at the time and my first love having an affair, I said something to the effect of, "You stood up in front of everyone you know and promised to only be with me forever." She replied, "I don't know. That's just what people do." She then asked for supervised visits with her affair partner and blamed me for her not being allowed to have friends. This basically crushed my entire view of love. Story 90. I know you love me. I feel it in everything you do, but I don't love you back. Then, where are you with me? You're fun to be with. Being used by someone you love is another kind of hurt. Story 91. I met someone else and I liked being with him more. So see you. My initial reaction was a bad feeling, but logic saved it because I know that both parties have to want each other for the relationship to work. If she realized that she likes that guy better, then the correct approach is to understand that she is happier with him and was not meant to be with me. I wish her the best and am off to find the one for me. My emotions calmed down after logic took control. Story 92. I've used you as a crutch. My girlfriend of 7 years, 20 years ago, said this when we were breaking up and I was trying to go back. When we met, she had a large mole close to her lips and was awkward and insecure. Now she was beautiful, mature, earning well, and frequently approached. I guess I wasn't enough. It broke my heart forever. I thought I knew her. 7 years, God damn it. We lived the best years together. I loved her. Still do, always will. Even when I eventually can't take it anymore and just disappear. Story 93. I never once enjoyed having sex with you, said my wife as she was leaving me for the man she had been having a 6-month affair with. This really put our 7 years into perspective. She told me later that she did not even remember saying it, which makes it so much worse. Story 94. My wife, when she left me, told me she had never loved me and that it had all been an act. She also told me to end my life. Story 95. For some reason, the one that always sticks out was something a random girl in year 8, over 30 years ago, said. I don't even remember her name or what she looked like, although I recall she was attractive. It was at a school musical where I volunteered to work backstage, and she was one of the performers. I was wearing a cap that said, Cheer Squad, and she pointed it out in front of a group of people, saying, more like Fat Squad. I wasn't a big kid but was overweight at the time. I have no idea why this one sticks out, as I've heard much worse things from others over the years, but this one remains a painful core memory. I should have forgotten all about it by now. Story 96. I'm mixed race, UK African. I met a girl when I was about 20. She was cute and we got along. We worked close to each other, so we would meet for lunch and hang out. One day, while having lunch, she said, I didn't expect you to be so nice. I didn't know what to think. It turned out I was the side person, her lunchtime distraction. One day, we bumped into her actual boyfriend. Once things ended, it dawned on me that she meant she was surprised I was a nice person because I was mixed race. Beyond the racist aspect, why would she want to date someone who wasn't very nice? I met her and stopped seeing her all within about a month. But that was a lesson about women. Story 97. Grandma. Wake him up for breakfast. It's 11 o'clock. Mom, it's okay. He will have it for lunch. At least some savings there. He had a bad year in college and was suspended at that time. Second situation. Having a nice coffee in the office canteen with 2 female colleagues. First woman. My parents are asking when I will get married. Second woman looks at me and says the marriage concept was introduced by people who could never get laid. I had brutal comebacks in mind, but my heart said it's okay. Let's enjoy the pain. Story 98. Last night my wife said, we need to connect on an emotional level, followed by, you need to connect with me emotionally. I don't need to connect with you. That really hurt. Story 99. Jokingly, I once said to my wife, you know you are lucky because I am really fussy about my women. Without skipping a beat, she replied, well, you are lucky that I am not fussy about my men. Ouch. Burned. Story 100. She had a host of health problems, including lupus and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I didn't care because I loved her. When we first got together, she paid me so much attention and made me feel seen for the first time in my life. We were inseparable for months. She consistently matched my vibe. It was beautiful, and I could see myself marrying her without question. Fast forward about 6 months, and she started to act erratically. I asked her what was going on, And she told me she had quit the venlafaxine she had been taking for 3 years cold turkey because she didn't feel like herself. She changed completely as a person. She became nasty and thoughtless. Suddenly, she was always tired or feeling ill and couldn't do anything with me because she had no energy. I accepted it because I loved her and bent over backwards to help and do as much as I could for her. This went on for months. After almost a month of her being constantly too ill or tired every single evening or weekend, she let slip that she had been out for lunch with her best friend again, and it was the third time that week. They go for lunches at least twice most weeks, and they had been to a garden center and had a great time. She said we should go there together. My mind clicked, and I said, "That's the same place I've been begging to take you for a month, but you're always too tired or sick. You had the energy and health to go out with her 3 times, but I get you falling asleep constantly and getting you in pain or cranky. Can you possibly skip one lunch with her so we can do something together in the evening for once?" She called me petty, jealous, controlling, and narcissistic and said I was using her illness as a weapon to attack her. Then she told me she wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with. That woman was a pill-induced persona, and everyone tries during the honeymoon period. She said I needed to stop being so hung up on what she was and love her for what she is. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.